What's up, y'all? It's your boy Lionel B, back with another classic Lionel B story. You know how we do over here. We talk about the glory days, the downfalls, the mess, and the money. And today, we're taking a trip down memory lane. I need y'all to buckle up because we are going back to the 90s. Now, folks, if you were outside and wasn't coming back inside in the 90s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a time when your status, your entire existence in the social hierarchy, or middle school or high school, was determined by one thing. Not your grades, not your little raggedy first car, but the jacket on your back. I'm talking about Starter. The satin, the snapbacks, that big pouch on the front of the pullover, and most importantly, that embroidered star logo on the sleeve and the back of the hat. Man, now listen. If you walked into the cafeteria in 1993 with a Charlotte Hornets Starter pullover, you were the king of all things fresh. You were the man. But here's the crazy part. This brand was so big, people were literally losing their lives over it. It was fashion to die for, literally. And then poof, gone. One day you're on the back of Will Smith on Fresh Prince, and the next day you're in the clearance bin at Walmart next to the Hanes underwear for $14.99. Now, how do you fumble a bag that big? How do you go from being the Nike of the streets to being the brand your grandma buys you because she found a good deal? Now, today we're doing a deep dive. We're going to talk about the rise, the murders, the billions, and the ultimate disrespect of the Starter brand. Now, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We're talking about the tragedy of the satin jacket. Now, let's get into it. Now, you might think Starter just appeared out of nowhere in 1990 when hip-hop embraced it. But the story actually starts way back in 1971. And it starts with a guy named David Beckerman. Now, David wasn't a rapper. He wasn't an athlete. He was just a guy in New Haven, Connecticut who loved basketball. He was working for a company called Duxter Sporting Goods. And David had eyes. He looked around at what the fans were wearing and he said, this stuff is trash. Now, back in the 70s, if you wanted to wear your favorite team's gear, it was basically cheap, generic looking t-shirts. The players had the good stuff, the heavy satin jackets, the varsity letters, but the fans got garbage. So David Beckerman says, I can do this better. He scrapes together $25,000 of his own money, convinces some investors to throw in another $50K, and he launches Starter. Why the name Starter? Because as David said, every player dreams of being a starter. Nobody wants to be on the bench. Nobody wants to be the sixth man. You want to be in the starting five. And it was aspirational. But listen to this hustle. For the first few years, nobody cared. He was selling jackets to bowling teams. Imagine that. The brand that would eventually be worn by Tupac and Snoop Dogg started out on the backs of guys named Gary, bowling a 140 at the local lanes in Ohio. But David Beckerman had a vision. He knew that the money wasn't in bowling. The money was in the leagues. He spent years trying to get a meeting with the MLB. Finally, in 1976, he gets his foot in the door. He starts making jackets for MLB teams. And this is where the genius kicked in. Before Starter, jackets were just jackets. They were functional. They kept you warm, but Starter made them loud. They used satin. Why satin? Because it shined under the stadium lights. It looked expensive. It looked flashy. But the real game changer, the real moment everything changed, that was 1983. Now in 1983, Beckerman finally gets the license for the NFL. This is the holy grail. But he did something that the NFL didn't want him to do. See, back then, brands were invisible. The NFL wanted the team logo to be the star. They didn't want the manufacturer's logo to be seen. But David Beckerman knew something about human psychology. He knew that if he made his brand cool, people would want to show off that they were wearing his brand. So he started putting the Starter S and the star logo on the sleeve of the jackets. Subtle, right? But then he looked at the hats. In the 80s, young people, the cool kids, the rebels, started wearing their baseball caps backwards. When you wear a hat backwards, what does everyone see? The ugly plastic snap, the empty space. Beckerman said, that's free real estate. He started embroidering the Starter logo on the back of the hat. And boom, now, whether you're coming or going, people see the star. It was genius marketing. And suddenly, it wasn't just a Dallas Cowboys hat, it was a starter hat. And let me tell you, once the NFL coaches started wearing those big puffy insulated Parkers on the sidelines, it was a wrap. You had legendary coaches like Bill Parcells and Mike Ditka looking like marshmallows on national TV, and every kid in America said, "I need that jacket." Now, by the late 80s, Starter wasn't just a clothing company, it was a status symbol. But they hadn't even hit their peak yet. Because you know who really makes a brand cool? It ain't the coaches, it ain't the athletes, it's the culture. It's hip hop. Now we're entering the golden era, the early 90s. This is when Starter went from sports gear to streetwear. You have to understand the influence of rap music in the early 90s. MTV was exploding, Yo MTV Raps was the Bible. And who was on the screen? N.W.A. You had Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, all of them rocking Los Angeles Kings and Raiders starter gear. They took these teams, which, let's be honest, were just sports teams, and they turned them into symbols of rebellion. Wearing a Raiders starter hat in 1991 wasn't about football, it was a statement. It says, "I'm with the culture." Now 2 Live Crew, down in Miami, Uncle Luke and the boys were making the Miami Hurricane starter jackets iconic. The orange and green satin, iconic. Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. How many times do you see Will rocking the hat sideways or that inside-out prep school blazer with the Starter logo? Now Starter had zero competition in the cool factor. Nike was making shoes, yeah, Reebok was there. But for jackets, if it didn't have a star, it was trash. And the styles, the pullover, do y'all remember the pullovers? The one with the big pocket in the front where you could store your little stash or whatever you needed to store? We ain't got to get into specifics on the Lionel B Stories, but you know what I'm talking about. By 1992, Starter did $356 million in sales. They went public on the stock market, and David Beckerman was rich, and the brand was untouchable. Now Nike came to David Beckerman in the early 90s. Phil Knight, the boss of Nike, came to him and said, "We want to buy you. We want to buy Starter." And you know what Beckerman said? He said no. He turned down Nike, y'all. Now can you imagine the confidence? I mean, I respect the hustle, but looking back, yikes, that was a crazy mistake. Because while the money was pouring in, something dark was happening on the streets. Now this is the part of the story where everything gets really real. And this is something we see in our culture way too often. We take something beautiful, something fly, something cool, and it becomes dangerous. Now starter jackets were expensive. A satin jacket was maybe $100 to $150. The big heavy Parkers, we're talking about $200, $300 in 1993 money. That's like $600 today. And for a kid in the inner city, that jacket was gold. And just like gold, people wanted to steal it. It started with robberies, kids getting checked for their jackets. You be walking home from school, minding your business, and a crew would roll up on you, take it off. And you had a choice, give up the jacket or catch a beat down. But then it got worse. It turned fatal. There were headlines all over the country. Teenager shot for starter jacket. In Ohio, a 17-year-old was killed over a Georgia Bulldogs jacket. In Chicago, kids were getting stabbed for Bulls jackets.
Starter jacket is currently the most popular jacket around. Students proudly wear the names of their favorite pro sports team. But wearing this jacket can mean trouble.
These kids having problems walking to and from school without somebody riding up, putting a gun to the head, taking their jacket.
So far, no one has been hurt, but police fear the robberies could become more violent.
If one of these kids refuses to give up their jacket, they're subject to get killed.
A starter jacket theft led to the death of 34-year-old Michael Levy last September. He was trying to stop 4 teens who police say had shoplifted the jackets from an athletic store when he was shot. Since early December, East Fort Worth detectives have investigated at least 20 jacket robberies, mostly around high schools. The youngest victim was 11. 18-year-old Tommy Lee Fannin is charged in 3 of the robberies. A 16-year-old Eastern Hills High School student is also a suspect, and this 18-year-old Dunbar High School student faces charges as well. The arrest of the 3 suspects, unfortunately, won't put an end to the jacket robberies. Police expect to put several other people behind bars before they're through. They also believe the investigation will take them into the world of gangs and black market trade.
Many of the suspects we've identified as being involved in local gangs, and so what they're doing is they're actually gaining profit by selling these on the black market trade.
Police believe there are more robberies than they're hearing about, but they say students are afraid to talk for fear of gang retaliation. Police and school officials hope increased security will stop the jacket robberies before someone gets killed.
Now, y'all, it got so bad the school started banning starter jackets. Can you imagine that? A clothing brand becoming contraband. Principals were saying you cannot wear this to school because we cannot guarantee your safety. Now, David Beckerman was horrified. He came out and said, "I made these for sports, not for this." But once the streets claim something, you can't control it. Now, the irony is this: the danger actually made the brand even more desirable for a while. It added to the mystique. If you wore a starter jacket, it meant you were tough enough to keep it. You were walking around with a target on your back and you didn't even care. But you can only ride that wave for so long before the vibe shifts. And man, the vibe definitely shifted. So how did it all fall apart? How did we get from "I kill for this jacket" to "I wouldn't wear this to mow the lawn"? Two things happened: bad luck and bad trends. In 1994, the Major League Baseball strike. They canceled the World Series. Imagine that, no baseball. Then the NHL lockout, no hockey. Starter's entire business was based on professional sports. When the game stopped, the camera stopped. When the camera stopped, the fans stopped seeing the jackets. Merchandise sales fell off a cliff. They lost millions overnight. Now, by the late 90s, hip-hop fashion was changing. We moved away from the bright, flashy teen colors. We moved into the baggy era. We wanted denim. We wanted FUBU. We wanted Sean John. We wanted minimalist brands like Abercrombie or Tommy Hilfiger. The big, shiny, loud satin jacket started to look played out. It looked like old school in a bad way. Starter tried to pivot. They tried to make non-sports clothes, but nobody wanted a starter shirt that didn't have a team logo, and they lost their identity. By 1999, just a few years after being on top of the world, Starter filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The empire had crumbled. And this is where disrespect begins. This is the part that hurts my soul. The company was sold. First, it was bought by Scottstein's family, the people who own Value City Furniture. They bought it for pennies. Then in 2004, Nike finally bought Starter. Remember when Nike wanted to buy them in the early 90s for big money? Well, they bought them in 2004 for $43 million. Now, some of y'all be like, "Man, $43 million, that ain't bad." But that is chump change in the corporate world. And what did Nike do with the Starter? Did they revive it? Did they make it a premium Nike heritage brand? Nah, they did the ultimate petty move. They took the brand that used to compete with them and they signed a deal to sell it exclusively at Walmart. Man, are you kidding? Y'all hear me? Walmart. They took the king of the 90s and put him in the aisle next to spatulas and tire shine. They turned Starter into a value brand. Suddenly, wearing Starter wasn't a flex, it was a sign you was broke. Now, if you showed up to school in 06 with a Starter jacket, you weren't getting respect, you were getting roasted. What are those? The Walmart specials. Now, it broke David Beckman's heart. He built a Ferrari and they turned it into a 1998 Honda Civic with a missing bumper. So where are they today? This is the Lionel B Stories twist. Now, Starter is still owned by a brand management company called Iconics. They bought it from Nike in 2007. And for the last 15 years, it's been strictly a budget brand. You can go on Amazon right now and buy Starter basketball shorts for $12. But nostalgia is a powerful drug. In the last few years, the 90s came back. The kids who couldn't afford the jackets in 93 are now adults with credit cards. And the Gen Z kids think the 90s aesthetics is vintage. So now we have a weird situation. You can go to Walmart and buy a cheap Starter tee, but if you go to a vintage store or eBay, an original 93 Charlotte Hornet Starter pullover, that thing is selling for $300, $400, sometimes $1,000 depending on the condition. Now, they are doing collaborations now. They did a collab with the N.W.A. again. They are trying to bring the satin style back. They are also trying to make it cool again. But let's be real, it will never ever be what it once was. You can't recreate the magic. you can't recreate the danger, the excitement, the Fresh Prince energy. Now, Starter is a lesson for all of us entrepreneurs. You could be on top of the world today, but if you don't adapt and you don't secure the bag when it's offered, shout out to David for saying no to Nike. Bad move, big dog. And if you let your brand lose exclusivity, you end up in the clearance bin. So what do you guys think? Did you own a Starter jacket back in the day? Did you get robbed for one, or were you the one doing the robbing? Now, do you think Starter can ever make a real comeback, or is it forever staying by the Walmart years? Now, let me know in the comments below. I read all of them and listen. Now, I'm Lionel B. This has been the rise and fall of Starter. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell button so you never miss a story. Stay fresh, stay safe, and keep your jacket zipped up. I'm out. Can't get enough? Click on the screen to watch even more fire content. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and you can also catch my videos on my other channels, the Lionel B Show Clips, Lionel B Stories, Lionel B's Garage, the Lionel B Network, and you can stream my audio on the go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other major podcast platforms.